Now, the hashtag Potter out was trending in the USA. I saw it had over 35,000 tweets on Sunday, which was really incredible.
It's like the Tri-Wizard tournament all over again.
I mean, listen, before I ask you, Chelsea have scored 6 goals across the last 12 Premier League games. And the stat coming out is that no side has scored fewer in the competition since the start of November. They're not playing well. You can clearly see that. And we'll get to Tottenham in a minute. But let's focus on Chelsea. I mean, where is there an out for Graham Potter? I feel for him now because I feel like the players are either not responding or they're taking too much time to get used to the Premier League, the new incomers. And the old guys who have been at the club for a while are just not in form right now. So where is there a help for Chelsea here? It's
really tough. I mean, look, I was writing about this morning. It should be on cbssports.com soon. This Chelsea hierarchy really want to give Graham Potter time. I don't want to make this about the league leaders, but it is true. And it's been written lots of places. And Potter even said this in his press conference. I think they take a lot of inspiration from what happened at Arsenal and the patience that came from Mikel Arteta. Is just my view, but you can see it in a lot of what's said, that they do know that. But there's a few differences there. I mean, first of all, there's the fact that a lot of Mikel Arteta's difficulties were behind closed doors, in that horrible, weird COVID season. But the other thing here is you're not the manager of Arsenal. You're the manager of Chelsea. And Chelsea has a very different culture. And Todd Boehly and Berhad Egbal may be very keen to change the culture internally. And this is all big, long-term rebuild stuff. And they would say, don't judge Enzo Fernandez and Mikhailo Mudryk and those guys, even Mark Cucurella, those guys yet. They're young players. We're building a squad not to win this season's Champions League, but to be competing for it for the whole 2020s. You're at Chelsea, though, and Chelsea fans have been given 20 years of crash course in a very different way of running a club. And you may think that was right. You may think that was wrong. It won an awful lot of trophies, and it became what is expected at Chelsea, that patience is minute. It's as thin as you can get. But that's fine. The turbulence is constant. But you win trophies. That's what Chelsea's culture is. And I think that's why the fan base have turned on Potter. Give him time. There have been some unlucky games in front of goal, as well as some pretty dreadful ones like Sunday and like Southampton. That's what you want to do. But I don't know if the fan base... And I should say this is discounting all those obnoxious, awful people that were sending death threats to Potter. They are the lunatic fringe, and we don't need to discuss the lunatic fringe, but it's pretty clear, I think, that Potter has lost a large chunk of the fan base, if not the majority.
Yeah, I'm concerned for Graham Potter. It's getting nasty. You hear things like death threats to his family. When it gets to that point, there's an anger, there's kind of an uncertainty about this club that it started with the ownership group. It started inside the club, and now that's kind of going and being projected out towards the fan base. When I look at this Chelsea team, there is a loss of identity, a loss of self. Looking on the bench, right? When you're a team and results aren't going your way, and you have players on the bench who want to come in and prove the manager wrong. I remember, we've all been there as players. When you're in form, great. Things are great. When you're not, you're on the bench, and you want to come in and prove something. When the camera panned to the bench, Aubameyang looks disinterested. Mason Mount looks like a sullen figure. And it's just something that you're not used to seeing at Chelsea Football Club. And it's just been too consistent under Graham Potter. I know there's new players. I know that this will take time, but when you haven't scored, when you've only scored 1 goal in the last 6 matches, when you are in 10th place, 14 points off of 4th, when you're looking over your shoulder and the likes of Jonathan Johnson's Aston Villa are creeping up on you, you're level on 31 points. There is it's not looking good for Chelsea Football Club and Graham Potter right now.
Ed jumping in and saying Chelsea have been spoiled for 20 years, haven't had to worry about patience, planning, long-term strategies. We're built off ruthlessness, immediate success only. Great point right there from Ed. Pretty similar to what James is pointing out. Kishwan jumping in and saying Kai Havertz should never be in front of goal. That's a great comment right there. Chelsea can have bigger chance of going through the Dortmund clash is to fire Potter. So basically fire Potter and you have a better chance of getting past Borussia Dortmund, says Footy Judge Mo. Go, James.
But you get past Dortmund and then what?
And then what?
You're not going to win the Champions League. You're not going to get... I mean, I have seen threads on Twitter about the possibility, like Chelsea fans going down and going, we're not winning this game. We're not, are we going to get to 40 points? But you're not going to get relegated either. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if like Boehly, Egbal, and Potter can like actually hold firm. But I think this is a bit more like that season, isn't it? When Mourinho actually did look like he might take them down, and they were just hovering above the relegation zone. But you just have to kind of write the whole season off. And I would say, I'd be inclined to say, just give Potter pre-season and make a quick judgment then if you think he's awful. But I mean, as he was saying, they had a really bad pre-season with a manager that they were thinking about sacking. And Boehly and Egbal then went and bought him a striker that Potter does not want in the slightest, in Aubameyang. I think you do need to give this a real chance, and I don't think Potter's had that yet.
I think it's about creating a culture at Chelsea Football Club once again, and it takes a time. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but many of the videos that have been coming up making fun of Chelsea and their fans, obviously recently, has been videos from training sessions where the players are walking out onto the training ground. I don't know, James, if you've been near the training ground at all, watching the players of late, but like the heads are down, the body language tells you a lot about what's happening. There's no excitement there. And, Mike, as you know, and you just pointed to it, when you've been a professional player, you should be looking forward to getting out on that training ground. I'm sure you see it, James, when you go to watch the Gunners at training. There's a buzz. They're all excited. They're all trying to prove to the coach, I should be in the starting 11. At Chelsea right now, there's 400 players going on the training ground for a start, and they're all competing for what, though? They're competing, probably a lot of those players, and I'll be honest with you, they don't want to play in the starting 11 right now because they know that there's nothing happening with this football club right now that is very good. So very disappointing to see that there. Real quickly, I want to just touch upon the fact that Spurs did get the result with Conte on the sidelines again here, James. And Christian Stellini has 4 wins: Marseille, Man City, West Ham, and Chelsea. So the 4 games they had no Conte, the 4 games they won, he's having an impact.
Although I think he would say that, Antonio Conte's on the phone to him 3 or 4 times a day. So I suspect he doesn't feel any more far away from Conte. But then maybe to an extent, just, I don't know. I wouldn't want to make it this, all about like, get rid of Conte, bring in Stellini. But I think maybe a little bit of peace and a little bit of like kind of the touchline not being a huge focus. I think there was, to an extent, there were just these Conte was always the focal point, and I think this has maybe just allowed the players a bit more breathing room. Richarlison, I thought, had quite a nice little game without scoring. He does need to start putting the ball in the net, but I thought he had a nice game for Spurs. And Skip has come in and done really excellently. I know not Spurs writers and Spurs fans were really looking forward to the day where he'd get a run in the team. So they're doing really well. I don't know how long it will last. But I think if they can hold on, just because what it's between them and Newcastle, I really think, for top 4, and it's April the 13th or something. I think that's really what it will all come down to. But really turned it around and appreciated a bit of peace and quiet. I think they have.